The relentless Texas wind whipped across the Panhandle plains like a devil on the loose, carrying the sharp tang of blood and the faint, desperate gasps of a soul clinging to life. Jack Harlan snapped awake in his weathered shotgun shack, his calloused hand fumbling under the threadbare pillow for the old Peacemaker revolver. Through the grimy window, etched with dust from endless droughts, he spotted Hera's shadowy figure in a ripped-up gown of fine satin and lace, staggering through the scrub brush like she'd crawled straight out of hell. When she crumpled at his doorstep, her chestnut hair fanning out over the cracked earth like spilled whiskey, he knew this night was going to upend everything. He couldn't have guessed that this stranger would drag him kicking and screaming back from the edge of oblivion, stirring up hungers he'd buried deep after a decade of solitude. But when those hazel eyes fluttered open and locked onto his, Jack Harlan stared straight into his own reckoning. Those were Grant's eyes, the eyes of his deadliest foe. What do you do when rescuing a fallen angel means dancing with the devil himself? And where's this showdown playing out under those big Texas stars? The Panhandle Knights don't pull punches, and they sure as shootin' don't let bygones be bygones. Neither did Jack Harlan, though the good Lord knew he'd tried for 10 hard years. The shack hunkered down like a stubborn mule on the outskirts of Amarillo, a good 50 miles from the nearest town where the law still pretended to matter. Out here, a man's history could chase him down like a Comanche raid, or so Jack figured until that fateful evening. She was hanging on by a thread when he hauled her inside, her skin as pale as bleached bone, lips cracked and turning purple from the chill that seeped through the walls. The gunshot at her side had soaked through that fancy dress crimson satin that screamed big city money, the kind added by a spread twice the size of a sorry plot. This wasn't some rancher's girl caught in a dust storm. Jack had patched up more bullet holes than he cared to count, even when those hands belonged to a woman who looked like she'd waltzed out of the San Antonio ballroom. As he sliced away the bloodied fabric, exposing skin that had never blistered under a prairie sun, she murmured, "Please." Her voice was polished, like she'd been schooled back east, laced with a fear that hit him square in the gut. "They're coming. They'll string me up if they catch me here." "Who's coming?" Jack kept his tone steady as he packed the wound with clean rags. Her eyes cracked open, those piercing hazel eyes that had plagued his sleep, and she breathed. I can't say. But if there's any decency left in you." Then she blacked out again, leaving Jack with a head full of riddles and a nagging sense that trouble had just moseyed in wearing high heels and a death wish. He stitched her up best he could with what passed for a kit in his line of work, draped her in his spare wool blanket, and stoked the fire to chase off the night's bite. As he watched her breathe, shallow and ragged, he couldn't shake it. Fate had kicked in his door, dressed in silken secrets that could get them both killed. 3 days on, she came to, propped up in his cot like a queen on a pauper's throne. "You saved me," she said, her voice gaining strength, the blanket slipping just enough to show the elegant line of her neck. "I owe you my life, mister." Jack busied himself with the coffee pot, avoiding those grateful eyes. "Ain't no debt. Just heal up and hit the trail. This ain't no place for a woman of your sort." But she didn't hightail it. Amelia Hayes, that's what she called herself, though Jack smelled the fib from a mile off. Everything about her screamed tall tale, except the way she looked at him, like he was a lighthouse in a sea of storms. Amelia Hayes had fingers that could whip up cornbread that'd make a man weep for his mama, mend his threadbare shirts with stitches finer than a preacher's sermon, and in the quiet evenings, she'd pull out a dog-eared volume of verse she'd scavenged from God knows where. "Listen to this, Mr. Harlan," she'd say, her voice weaving through the lantern light like smoke from a campfire. "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep." Jack grunted without looking up from oiling his rifle. "Robert Frost. Knew it back when I had time for such nonsense." She paused, eyes wide. "You read poetry?" He let the silence stretch, then muttered, "Used to, before life turned mean." That should have been his cue to send her packing, but instead he found himself spilling about the man he'd been, books, dreams before the blood and the badges and the ghosts that kept him up at night. She hung on every word, making him feel like maybe he wasn't just a washed-up drifter after all. It was a powder keg that pulled between them, dangerous as a rattler in your boot. "You're not like most men out here," she said one night, her gaze lingering on the lines etched into his face from too many sunrises and sunsets alone. Something twisted in his chest, waking feelings he'd drowned in rot-gut years back. "Good or bad?" he asked, voice gravelly. She smiled that smile could have thawed a frozen river. "Haven't figured it out yet." But Jack had. He was tumoring head over spurs for a woman whose real story he didn't know, and every gut instinct hollered that loving her would burn them both to ash. The locket tumbled from her skirt pocket like a Judas kiss. Jack snatched it up, flipping it open under the flickering lamp. Inside, engraved in swirling letters, "A Grant, 1895. Grant. The name slammed into him like a stampede, sucking the air from his lungs. Samuel Grant, the cattle king whose boy Jack had plugged full of lead 10 years back in a sun-baked showdown outside Lubbock. Amelia Grant, the only daughter of the man who'd sworn vengeance on a blood oath. "You planning to spill the beans sometime, Amelia?" he growled as she stepped in from tending the mule, dust still clinging to her hem. She froze in the doorway, color draining like sand through an hourglass. "Jack, I didn't know it was you. Not at first. I was running, bleeding out, and you." His voice cracked like dry leather. "No more lies, darling. I've choked down enough of them." She collapsed into the rocker across from him, fingers shaking as she took the locket. When their skin brushed, a spark jumped betrayal or not, the fire between them didn't care. "I swear, I had no clue," she whispered. "From what? What kind of hell you fleeing?" The truth poured out in jagged shards, each one slicing deeper. Victor Langford, the oil baron who'd bought her like a prime heifer to seal a deal that'd swallow up every small spread from Dallas to the Rio Grande. The forced betrothal to merge empires, her mad dash west toward the border, and a shot of freedom that ended with her father's own hired guns putting lead in her hide. "He owns half of Texas already," she sobbed, tears carving tracks down her dust-streaked cheeks. Langford poured a fortune into Pa's operations. "If I don't wed him, he'll pull the plug, ruin every hand, every family scrap and buy on our lands. They'll all pay for me bucking the system." Jack should have crowed with grim satisfaction. This was Grant's spawn, begging his shack for troubles that weren't his rodeo. But all he saw was a woman caged by the same merciless world that had chained him to one fatal draw. "Your brother," he said low, "Eddie, it wasn't cold-blooded. Fair fight, square as they come." Her voice trembled. "I know. Pa painted you as the devil incarnate. But if you were, you'd have left me for the buzzards." She rose, gliding to the window where moonlight silvered her silhouette. Eddie was a hothead, always chasing trouble. Pa couldn't rein him in. The quiet stretched taut as a bowstring. "So what's the play now?" Jack pressed. "You know me. I know you. This train's derailing fast." Amelia turned, eyes blazing with a mix of fury and fire. "What if it doesn't? What if we ride out together? Run and don't erase the stains. Amelia, don't erase what I've done to your kin." She closed the gap, close enough for him to catch the faint rose water on her skin, see the wild beat at her throat. "Maybe not, but it could let us build something fresh, something ours." When she took his hand, he didn't yank away. When she pressed into him, he didn't backpedal. And when she tilted her face up, lips soft and yielding, Jack Harlan surrendered to the sin that felt like salvation. The kiss started gently, testing the waters. Then she sighed a sound that shattered the dam. He pulled her tight, her body molding to his like she was made for it, tasting of sweet rebellion and stolen tomorrows. "This is loco," he murmured against her mouth. "Then let's go crazy together," she breathed, and the lantern's glow lit her grin like a promise. Outside, the wind wailed its fury, but they tuned it out. Those panhandle nights dragged on forever, black as pitch and colder than a banker's heart, the kind that dredges up every regret a man ever owned. But that night, tangled in Amelia Grant's arms, Jack found a heat that scorched away the shadows. She slipped into his bed like a dream turned real, her satin nightdress whispering against the rough boards. "You sure?" he rasped, want and worry warring in his throat. "Never been surer of a damn thing," she replied, sliding beside him. "Done letting others call the shots." Her fingertips traced the puckered scar on his ribs, a souvenir from his martial days. "Tell me about this one." He swallowed hard as her lips ghosted over it. "Rustler in Abilene, 88. Thought he could outdraw lightning." She found another, jagged across his hip. "And this? Bar brawl in Fort Worth. Whiskey-fueled idiocy." He captured her hand, kissing the knuckles. "Amelia, you don't gotta, I wanna," she cut in, sealing it with a kiss that burned like mesquite. She was a vision that scrambled a man's thoughts, the arch of her neck in the fire glow. Chestnut waves tumbling over his pillow, the little gasps when he explored her secrets. But it was her eyes, holding him like he mattered, that wrecked him. When she arched under him, nails biting into his back, he was gone. When she whispered his name like a vow, he was whole. Later, spent and sated, her head on his chest, he realized love wasn't a choice sight struck like a twister, wild and unyielding. "What are you ponderin'?" she murmured, sleepy and content. "That I'm a damn idiot. Why's that? Fallin' for a gal I can never keep." She lifted her head, eyes solemn. "What if you already got me? What if love flips the script?" Before he could answer, coyotes yipped in the distant Sino. Wait, that was horse hooves thundering like Judgment Day. Amelia bolted upright, face ashen. "They tracked me." Jack was already buckling on his gun. The fragile piece exploded. "How many?" 30 easy. "Pa don't mess around." Through the window, lanterns bobbed like fireflies from hell, the rumble of spurs and creaking leather closing in. Hardened gunslingers circling like vultures. "Back door." Jack hissed, chambering rounds. "Trail leads to the arroyo." "No more hide-in," Amelia snapped, yanking on her dress. "I ain't letting you bleed from my mess." "Amelia," a voice boomed across the yard, thick with command. "Harlan, I know she's in there. Hand over my girl, and maybe I'll let you draw breath a while longer." Samuel Grant had ridden in with his posse, and he meant business. Jack peeked out 30 shadows, rifles glinting, pros who'd backed winners before. "Last call, Harlan. Send her out, or we'll smoke you both." Amelia joined him at the window, chin high despite the fear. "Pa, I'm here, but I ain't your property no more." The hush that followed chilled deeper than the wind. Then Grant growled, "Always too stubborn, girl. But Langford's waiting on a bride, and come hell or high water, he'll have one." That's when Jack knew. No easy out. Some battles picked you, and guarding what you cherished meant wagering it all. He kissed her fiercely, tasting salt and steel. "Whatever goes down, know this. Loving you was the best bad decision I ever made." Outside, the net tightened. Inside, two sworn enemies forged an alliance forged in fire. Sunrise clawed over the horizon, gilding the scrub in bloody hues. 30 gunsels ringed the shack, breaths fogging the dawn air, barrels fixed on the door. At the heart, Samuel Grant sat tall on his piebald gelding, a titan at 60 who ruled the ranges with an iron fist and a silver tongue. "Amelia," he called, voice like cracking thunder. "Enough play acting with this murderer. Time to come home." The door creaked open. Jack emerged first, hands loose but eyes sharp, sizing up the trap like a wolf in a snare. Amelia followed, defiant as a wild mustang. "Howdy, Pa," she said, her words ringing clear. Samuel's features twitched fatherly ache flickering before the steel mask clamped down. "You look peaked, girl. Worn thin. That's what shacked up with killers does. This here's Liberty, Pennsylvania's something you'd never cotton to." Samuel barked a laugh, hollow as a dry well. "Liberty? Pulling up in this dust bowl With the varmint who gunned down your brother? That's ruining all we've bled for. Eddie's passing was no bushwhack, and you know it. What I know, Samuel hissed, leaning in, is Langford sunk a king's ransom into our outfit. If you spit on that wedding, he'll foreclose leave every soul from here to the border high and dry. That's your kind of freedom, watching folks starve for your whims. The barb landed hard. Amelia paled, the old guilt twisting like barbed wire. Jack saw chains of duty yanking her back. There gotta be another trail, she murmured, voice fraying. There is, drawled a new voice. Victor Langford spurred forward, paunchy at 55, but eyes sharp as coyote teeth. Wed me proper, and I'll sweeten the pot your pa keeps most his acres. Hands keep their pay. Balk well. Fine print's a bitch in contracts. Jack's blood boiled. She ain't going nowhere with you snakes. 30 hammers Kakita chorus of doom. You got no say. Harlan, Samuel sneered. Lucky I don't plant you now. Maybe, Jack shot back, steady as granite. But how many of your pukes you want to bury for a grudge? The yard teetered on a knife's edge, violence humming like a live wire. Then Amelia strode forward, voice slicing the standoff. Hold it'll of ya. She faced her father, Langford Jack. I got a deal. Amelia, no, Jack started. Hear me out. She planted herself center stage, a force of nature in the dust. Mr. Langford, you bankrolled a merger for my pa's spreads and your rigs. What if I lock that and sands the altar? No forced hitch for either side. Langford's brow arched. Spill it. Partnership, straight business, 70-30 your way. Full run of our routes, resources, plus a fat payout for the jilted groom. And the cash from corpse? Langford purred. Amelia's grin was pure Grant-Heisey and shrewd. From pa's holdings, naturally. See, if Amelia Grant perishes in a freak stampede, heading for Mexico, her stake rolls to her old man, who honors her last request to seal the deal she died dodging. The wind died. Even the birds shut up. Samuel eyed her, pride warring with shock. You I mean to check out? To vanish, she corrected. Amelia Grant lost in the wilds, body swallowed by the Badlands. Pa, heartbroken, cuts the deal anyway. Langford chuckled slowly, sharp as a stiletto. But him, he jabbed at Jack. Eyeballs make lousy ghosts. What witness? Amelia's tone was bedrock. Jack Harlan buys it that night shot resisting the law. Shack goes up in flames. Frontier tragedy, pure and simple. Jack got it then. She was scripting their escape, wiping the slate clean so they could bolt together. Pa, she softened, the daughter peeking through. Let me go out with honor. Let me pick my fate. Samuel held her gaze, seeing the Spitfire he'd raise fierce, cunning, unbreakable. At last he nodded. Lads, this never happened. Amelia Grant and Jack Harlan went up in smoke 3 nights back. Rest his mop up. He wheeled his horse. Burn it good. 2 years later, in the sun-baked valleys outside Tucson, a woman called Rosa Morales leaned in the doorway of their tidy adobe, watching her husband Mateo break a spirited filly in the corral. He moved with that same quiet grit, though his locks were cropped short now, his jaw clean-shaven, palms softened from ranch work minus the trigger scars. Folks figured him for a vaquero fresh from south of the border, hitched to a widow with a patch of earth and big ideas. Nobody pried. Arizona was lousy with reinventions. The missive arrived at dawn, scrawled to Rosa in looping script she knew by heart. Inside, Querida Rosa, the venture thrives. Langford's content with his stake, though he mutters about his vanished fiancée now and then. I spin it as sorrow playing tricks on a tycoon. The crew sing praises for better wages turns out. Boom times soften even oil wolves. I miss you fierce. May the desert sun warm your days. Tu amigo fiel es. Rosa tucked it away, next her heart, then ambled to the fence. Her hand drifted to the gentle swell of her belly, their babe kicking hello. Word from kin. Mateo asked, not glancing up. Old pal, she said, resting on the rail. Dealin's booming. He nodded, reading the unsaid. They'd torched their ghosts in that Texas blaze old sins, old skins. What they had now was humble, hard-won, but real. The West had schooled them harsh. Sometimes you gotta torch it all to unearth your true self. Sometimes dying is the only path to breathing free. And love? It had cost any price, even a new name. They were unbound, unbreakable, home at last stand that topped all the empires the old world could peddle. What did you think of Jack and Amelia's wild ride? Drop your take in the comments. Would you risk it all for love like that? Or play it safe? Share your stance, spill your thoughts, and let's hash it out.